Alright everyone, right now Twitter is acting disgracefully, running a massive censorship campaign, basically directed at anyone with a significant audience who's questioning the fact that the election stinks to high hell. Dude, most of the ballots being counted right now, they still smell of warm printer ink, and I'll tell you how we know this. You can look at the results in most of the states already. There's only a half a dozen left outstanding. Trump consistently outperformed in all of the competitive states that he ended up winning by a considerable margin. All of those states are already in. In all of the remaining states, it's basically on a knife's edge regardless of who's ahead. Why would it be so close there? Like, the polls were kind of okay in those states, but they were completely wrong in the other ones that already were tabulated. Bless you. I think that there's a little bit of a statistical anomaly there. Plenty of data points, by the way, to work with. I think that it's unhelpful, number one, if you want people to believe in election integrity, attempting to censor, number one, the President of the United States, but number two, a vast number of other people, pundits, independent commentators, odds makers in some cases, and so forth, I think is unhelpful, because it makes it look, what Twitter is at the end of the day is a multi-billion-dollar entity run by a multi-billionaire with a multinational team running it. When a group like that is impeding normal conversation with regards to the election, it automatically is going to reduce trust in the election because it just looks slimy. It looks sleazy. Even if the election is completely ironclad, that's not the way to go about it. So from a pragmatic angle, number one, I'm not sure that it's helpful even for their bottom line, which is obviously that they want you to accept Biden being rigged onto the population, which is what is happening. I do declare that at this time, there is an attempt to rig the election. They also appear to be doing some sleazy shit in the Senate, and not the good sleazy kind like P. Martini. That's what it appears, unfortunately, to be happening at this time. Number two, it is election interference. Twitter is ultimately, at the end of the day, while a U.S.-based firm, ultimately a multinational corporation, operating in multiple nations, making money in multiple nations. Jack Dorsey, an international man of mystery, looks like a hermit at this point, wandering around in, I guess, Africa somewhere. He goes to Asia regularly. And he's massively rich. Where are all these liberals to complain about billionaires when it's Jack Dorsey doing something like this? They have such a big problem. Oh my God, Sheldon Adelson dumped $50 million into New York or something like that. They had no problem with Bloomberg. They have no problem with Dorsey. They have no problem with, like, Sundar Pichai interfering in the same political process. Essentially, they're just warped lemmings, and they really think that there's a huge overall difference between generically Republican and Democratic individuals, so they don't really care if democracy dies in darkness, so to speak. They don't care if the election is rigged. Just so long as Orange Man's gone. It's gotten to the point where it seems like the average liberal has Trump derangement syndrome so badly that they would rather wreck the republic for which we stand just to get rid of Donald Trump. They're so terrified at or angry at this man, this one particular individual who they think is Orange Hitler or a fascist or something, that they're literally willing to sit by and let billionaires influence the election on a level that's far more palpable than just they dump a lot of money into it. Now, Citizens United is bad enough. Having big money in the elections has cheapened them already. Now you're saying essentially that you don't even want the possibility of questioning the results of the election. Well, what have you been doing for the last 4 years? You've been screaming over and over that Donald Trump was an illegitimately elected president controlled by Vladimir Putin. Twitter, despite the fact that it's been objectively discredited, that particular line has never censored anyone for saying that. But you're very comfortable with them censoring the sitting president of the United States himself, including when he's posting just clips of him on Fox. MSNBC cut him off earlier when he was talking. What more need I say? Hypocrisy thy name is. Again, no problem with claims of election interference for 2016. Absolutely, no, that's totally true. See, the problem is you're not thinking clearly. You have Trump derangement syndrome. That's the term generally used for it by Trump fans. There's no other real term that you would understand to use it. You've got cognitive dissonance. You've slipped too far into the two-party mentality whereby you think that the other guys are automatically bad. So if they rigged an election, it's true. But if you have fairly transparent shenanigans going on, like tales of 100,000 Biden ballots arriving in Detroit in the middle of the night swinging the Michigan election, like poll observers, including some that are registered Democrats, by the way, not even being allowed to do their job, when you've got this sort of thing going on, and you've got clear evidence that these things are happening, I would think that that would call into question the legitimacy of aspects of the election. Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's a statistical anomaly that Trump is managing to lose or barely ahead in all the states still counting, but even though they had mail-in ballots as well, he ran away with it in all of the other states that simply ended on November 3rd. It's amazing how that happened. Why was there never this surge in mail-in ballots in these other states? Don't you think that is a little bit fishy? Oh, it just happens to be in the states that are allowing the ballots to continue to be counted now, as opposed to the other states that already tabulated them. Yeah, Trump did fine on mail-in ballots there, but now it's like 95% Biden ballots that we're finding in some of these states. That is not reality. It's an impossible. In some cases, you have areas where there are more votes cast than there are registered voters. That also is an impossibility. If Trump does take this to court, if the Supreme Court ends up getting involved, Trump is suing in all of these states, there's a chance that he ends up getting declared the President of the United States up and over the objections of the states simply because of all the shenanigans going on. And we live in the smartphone age, by the way. We've got plenty of documentation of weird shit happening. Essentially, what I would argue is that all of these ballots currently being counted shouldn't be counted at all. The states, you'd think, with the technology we have today, don't you think that it's reasonable to expect that we should have a result on election night? Don't you think that if you want to have a mail-in ballot system, it's reasonable to expect citizens to mail those ballots in a timely fashion so that they get there by election day? How hard is it to put a fucking ballot in the mail? It's just like with voter ID. I don't support a universal voter ID. I'm not down with that because I don't want to have another fucking ID to carry around all the time. You should have to show an ID of some sort, though. You should have to show a driver's license or a state ID in order to get your ballot. Of course you should. Of course, if you got mail-in ballots, it's going to be kind of hard to do that. They say, well, we'll check the signatures. Dude, signatures from people are all over everything that they ever do. It would be so easy to harvest a few thousand of those and print up some fraudulent ballots. Or grab some fraudulent ballots. If you have a process in place to do that, by the way, this shenanigan that is going on at the moment means that from now on out, from here on in, I would say that all future elections technically are jeopardized. If the possibility exists in an election that's remotely close in more than a few states to rig it in favor of one candidate or another, how is an independent-minded candidate ever supposed to get around the billionaires that control the whole system from the top to the bottom? How is it supposed... You'll never have another 2016, and I know that a lot of you liberals, if you hear me say that, oh, good. Trump, whether you like his proposals or not, basically gamed the system and managed to get in around the objections of a bunch of billionaires and war hawks. That's basically what happened. They spent 4 years subsequently partnering with the corporate media, run by multinational billionaires, to convince you that he was Hitler. Name a fascistic thing that he did. He was one of the most withdrawn, hands-off presidents in some ways that we've had in a very long time. This is the Jimmy Carter era. He's the first president since Jimmy Carter to not start or increase a significant conflict. You do realize that, correct? It took him weeks to respond to rioting, despite the fact that Obama acted within a few days. Why? Because he didn't want to be cast off as a dictator. Come on, dude. Not a fascist. I hope he wins his court cases. I have a feeling that the remaining states will tilt towards Biden. Just a gut feeling based on what I'm observing. Based on the fact that, nobody knows their head from their ass at the moment. The election's fucked. And even at this point, I'm going to say this, even if Trump manages to win those states, you still got massive fraud going on. We got a much bigger problem than just the presidency. Don't you, if you can have tens of thousands of fraudulent ballots in some of these states, which you provably do in Michigan and Wisconsin, I do not believe that the results there are legitimate, that's a big problem. Don't you think, by the way, don't you think this could be a big problem if in the future some Republican president ends up getting in because of this bullshit? Don't you think that the very fact that billionaires are interfering in the election undermines people's faith in the election? Look, Silicon Valley's big tech firms enjoy a lot of brand loyalty, but they spent the last 4 years pissing a lot of that away. So if you want to peg your hopes of the American people believing in the electoral process and the republic that we exist in being generally fair, having Twitter censoring the sitting president of the United States is not the greatest way to go about it. That's about all. Peace out.